Hello and welcome to this edition of Ensigns to the Nations, where we talk about the Come Follow Me lesson for each week. And this week we are talking about the final two sections in the Doctrine and Covenants. So we're excited about that. This is going to be sections 137 and 138.
Yep. We're getting into it a little late, so it's dark, but we always love walking around the temple when it's lit up.
It's actually not that late. It's like 5:30.
Yes. Now that the world's on a different axis, it's a little darker.
Yes, but these sections are interesting.
Yeah, they are. They're really neat, and it's fun to see how the Doctrine and Covenants wraps up. So these sections actually weren't added to the scriptures until later. They were added in 1981. Both of these scriptures, they talk about the redemption of the dead. And section 137 was given by Joseph Smith back in Kirtland when they were getting the temple ready and they were getting lots of revelations. That was in 1836, and then 138 was written by Joseph F. Smith 80 years later in 1918 in Salt Lake City. So,
and there were actually some sections, right, between the two. These are not in chronological
for sure,
order,
right, because we're talking about Kirtland to Salt Lake. There's all kinds of stuff that happened in between there. But they didn't add them to the Doctrine and Covenants until later, so that's why they're stuck at the end.
And I remember when they were added. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I actually do, right.
I do too. I was only very young. I won't tell you exactly how old.
So some little background about this. Joseph's brother Alvin died in 1823. So Joseph was 18 years old. Of course, this happened after the first vision, and Alvin was a bit of a hero to Joseph, and he loved him, and he in fact, Alvin died, and when he did, before he died, he talked to Joseph, and this is what he said. He said, "Do everything that lies in your power to obtain the record. Be faithful in receiving instruction and in keeping every commandment that is given to you. Your brother Alvin must leave you." And so Joseph really was worried about Alvin much of the time, because at that time preachers were saying, you know what, if you weren't baptized and you didn't accept Jesus in that way, you were not going to heaven. And so obviously Joseph, the church has not been restored, the priesthood hadn't been, so Alvin hadn't been baptized. He was a lot like his father, Joseph Smith Sr., and didn't really get into going to church, into a specific one, so he was worried about Alvin. At the time also, when Joseph received this revelation, he and Emma had lost multiple children, and so he was worried about what happens when little infants die. So when he saw this vision of the celestial kingdom, one of the things that gave him much joy, and he marveled, and that's what it says in the scriptures, he marveled that he saw his brother Alvin in the celestial kingdom. And what a comfort that was to him. This section also talks about how children will inherit the celestial kingdom, and what great comfort this must have given to Emma as she thought about her children.
And again, I know that we liken the scriptures unto ourselves. That's one thing we do is we walk around, and this is doctrine that we're very familiar with, but at the time this must have been so exciting to get personal revelation, not just for your own relatives, but to know this doctrine for anybody who has passed on. Must have been just such an exciting thing for Joseph Smith and for the members to learn about. Right. I can only imagine.
It was a beautiful vision of comfort, and it teaches us also what a comfort it is to know that the rice farmer in China who has never heard of Jesus Christ or the gospel, but has the light of Christ, as we all do, and that he too can be able to accept the gospel and live a good life, and accept the gospel at some point in time and be saved in the celestial kingdom. So that's 137. There's a lot of great stuff in there. But let's fast forward to 138, which is 80 years later. But actually, let's talk about what happens in between.
Thought you skipped
my
candlelight moment for a second here. Yes, what I want to talk about is what happened in between these two sections. Between 137 and 138, 80 years passed, as Kurt mentioned earlier, and 1,500 miles passed between these, because this was the time period between 1836 and 1918. And of course we know that was in there was the pioneer trek out west. So the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about those pioneers in that period of time is actually a musical that you were in.
Oh yeah.
Called Trail of Dreams.
Yep.
And if you haven't seen it, it's a musical that was put together by some LDS musicians and writers, and it's all about the pioneers and the experiences they had. And the members, when you were in it, some of our children were in this as well. They played some.
It's put on by the stake. By the
stake, and that's when we lived in the Grand Blanc stake in Michigan. So many of the those that were affected by the horrific shooting that took place a couple of months ago were also in this musical with us. And as I think back, I think about some of the songs that were in there and some of the scenes that were in this pioneer depiction of the trials that happened during that time period. And I think one of the songs that has always stuck with me from that musical is called Rocky Ridge. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
That song, some of the lyrics to it, I just wanted to share. Rocky Ridge, oh, the memory haunts us yet. Rocky Ridge, those who crossed it can't forget. Rocky Ridge was an actual ridge that the pioneers had to cross. These were members of the Willie Handcart Company, and they had started off late in the season, and they were faced with, by the time they got to Rocky Ridge, many of their handcart company had already died. It had already started to snow. They had already been through some terrible tribulations. Well, they got to this point, and at 9 o'clock in the morning, they decided they were going to ascend up. This is a huge ascent to get up to the ridge. This was a long ascent to get up to the top. And it actually took them 20 hours to get across Rocky Ridge. They left, and they didn't arrive until 5:30 the next morning at their resting spot. So they lost people all along the trek. They were knee deep in snow, 18 inches of snow. This happened on October 23rd. Again, the winter had come in strong and early. They were out of supplies, and so just a real horrific time for the pioneers. But what's fascinating to me is some of the testimonies that came from this handcart company. I just wanted to share one by a man named Francis Webster, who was one of them that crossed the plains. And this is a quote that he said many years later after arriving in Salt Lake. He was sitting in a Sunday school class, and they were criticizing the handcart companies, saying, they shouldn't have left so late in the season. They set themselves up for disaster, and just, in retrospect, now saying everything that they had done wrong. And Francis Webster was quoted as saying during that Sunday school class, "I ask you to stop this criticism. You are discussing a matter you know nothing about. Cold historic facts mean nothing here, for they give no proper interpretation of the questions involved. Was it a mistake to send the handcart company out so late in the season? Yes, but I was in that company and my wife was in it. I have looked back many times to see who was pushing my cart, but my eyes saw no one. I knew then that the angels of God were there. Was I sorry that I chose to come by handcart? No. Neither then nor any minute of my life since. The price we paid to become acquainted with God was a privilege to pay, and I am thankful that I was privileged to come in the Martin Handcart Company. So the price they paid to become acquainted with God was a privilege, he says, and he was thankful for it. And it's just so hard to articulate, I think, the correlations in my heart and in my mind as I think about the Grand Blanc ward and everything that they've been through. Some of the people that were in that play I was talking about were there that day. A good friend of ours played an angel in that play, that she would come and escort those that were dying to heaven.
She was the angel of death.
And just that these same members, it's today in this day and age, still facing trials like the pioneers had to face, horrific things.
Right.
And the faith that these members here in 2025 have is nothing short of the faith of the pioneers, as you listen to and you talk to their experiences that day.
Right. And again, as we talk about, one of the scariest things that everybody experiences is death. And people are worried about it and unsure about it, and it's exactly what Joseph Smith and Joseph F. Smith were worried about as they received these revelations. So Joseph F. Smith, he had gone through a lot too, because his dad, who was of course Hiram, Joseph's brother, was killed when he was 5. His mom died when he was 13. He had tons of kids who died by the time he was the prophet. And so he also thought about this quite a bit. And when he received this revelation, this vision of the redemption of the dead, it was very comforting to him as well to know what things would be like. One of the things that I thought was so super important in this revelation was it talks about how the Savior was there, and he taught and conversed with the great ones, and he mentioned who they were. These were prophets and apostles, and they were Adam and Moses,
Adam and Eve.
Yes, and Eve, and all these great people, and of course
Noah.
Others.
All of them.
And that's the group, guys, that we want to be in. That's what we wanted to be, is in the noble and great ones.
Isn't that such a great thought to think about all of those people being there together in the same place?
Well, they loved it. They were great joy, and in fact they sang great joy songs, and so it was really cool. But he mentions particularly that the Lord did not go and visit the wicked. You know, those would be people who did not accept the gospel. But what he did do is he sent missionaries over to those people, the wicked. He sent them there because he wanted them to learn and to grow, and he gives everybody the opportunity to do that. So even those who were not able to accept the gospel because maybe they didn't hear it, or maybe their circumstances didn't allow it, they still have the opportunity. And what I love about this is that the Lord has a plan to get this to everybody, because he loves all of his children. The name of this lesson in Come Follow Me is the vision of the redemption of the dead, but I kind of like to call it God loves all his children, because that's what it's really about. He loved the people. He loved Alvin, and he loved the Joseph Smith and Emma's kids. He loved all the pioneers and each one of them that passed away.
It's all part of his plan.
All part of his plan.
And his love for us is to tell us of his plan, so that we can find comfort in knowing that we will be together again as families with our loved ones who have passed before us.
It's very comforting. Family is important, and living with families is important, and that's just the genesis of the gospel. So we love it. Well, Thanks.
Thanks for joining
us.
us.
And see you next time
See you next time on Ensigns to the Nations.